You're listening to the Junto Podcast, a podcast about leadership, faith, community, and pretty much anything else that you want to talk about. Visit us at www.juntopodcast.com. That's JUNTO podcast.com. Thanks for stopping by and enjoy the show. Learning how to be accountable in all that we do. That's right, we're continuing the conversation on maximum accountability and extreme ownership. Welcome to the Junto Podcast. That's right, the Together Podcast. And Heather, part two of this conversation of maximum accountability and extreme ownership using the reference and book Extreme Ownership from Jocko Willink. What do you think?
I'm ready to learn more about extreme ownership, taking responsibility for myself and my actions, my thoughts, all those things wrapped up in not just leadership, but life.
Yeah, leadership and life. Absolutely. And what I love about this, if you were able to tune in to episode 104, we started this conversation about maximum accountability, extreme ownership, what it really means, not only in life, but in leadership. And this book, Jocko and his Navy SEAL mate Leif, they recount their stories in this book of their time in Iraq. Some really, really intense wartime stories, but they apply those principles to everyday living, specifically as it pertains to leadership in business, in life. And so we want to continue the conversation about things we can do, maybe steps we can take to begin to take ownership and get out of the rut that we might be in life.
Right.
Part two, now.
Right now.
Here we go.
And like you said, they use the military terminology, the, what do you call them? The plans of action, military, all things military to relate to execution of making decisions and leading people and being under leadership of someone, all those things. So excited to get in part two, the laws of combat.
The laws of combat. This one sounds intense. You want to start us off? You got some info or some content there?
So there are 4 basic principles that go along with this. 1, cover and move. 2, simple. 3, prioritize and execute. And 4, decentralized command. And so we're going to go into each specific one and talk about that a little bit. So the first one, cover and move, right, talks about leadership and passing that on to the next generation.
Wow.
Like we can be great leaders or we can be great at doing whatever it is that we do in life, right? But if we're not duplicating ourselves, who's going to do it after us, right?
Yeah.
So that, you can take that and do anything with it as far as parenting, right? On your job, at work, at church, your friends, anything. Duplicating ourselves. That's hard to do because I think we stay so focused on what am I doing? I'm trying to do it well. I don't have time to bring someone along and mentor and show them. That takes time.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And that's a hard part of leadership. I think depending on your leadership style, it might be hard specifically for certain types of personalities to be able to relinquish that authority or to relate. We get in a rut. We say, well, I'll just do it. It's easier for me to do it because I know it'll be done right. And so we can easily get ourselves in that rut. But cover and move, that's an interesting concept. I want to read or from my excerpts of the things I read. Now, part 2 of this book, it continues on with real-life accounts of war. And cover and move is actually a strategy that the SEALs, and probably not just the SEALs, but other military teams, branches would put into place in a wartime situation. And so cover and move is this idea. Jocko or Leif, actually, I believe it is recounting an instance where they're having to go into the most dangerous part of Ramadi, Iraq. They're having to do it late in the cover of darkness. So just to paint the story, they assemble, they make all the plans, they take out to this city. Now, they've already scouted the buildings that they know they want to be in. They leave about 2 a.m. because they have to have the cover of darkness in order to get to where they are going to safely. Now, keep in mind that this is a highly, highly intense war zone. I mean, at any moment, the enemy could just, open gunfire on them
Right.
as they had been. Long story short, they make the plans. They get there in the cover of night. And when they get to the building that they had scouted out, once they check that out, they realize that it didn't provide them the vantage point that they needed.
Wow.
They recouped. They went to the next building over and realized right then there, oh, you know what? This building is no better. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they decided our best bet. And what I like about this, what I like about this is as Jocko or Leif is recounting this, basically here's what he's saying his process is, and this might be helpful to you. Basically, he was assessing every single option they had. One, they could split up their group, be in both buildings, and they could, do the best they could do. But keep in mind, that would lessen the numbers of them together. That would leave some of their SEALs exposed. And he goes through this process of saying, wow, okay, we've got a good option. We've got a better option at best. And so ultimately, they have to, and I don't think he goes good, better, and best. I think it's like bad, least worse, and worse. I think is probably how it
none
was.
are good, but it's what they got.
None are good, exactly. But he goes through those steps in terms of figuring out. So, man, listen, I say that to say that you have to learn how to evaluate your situations and the things that you're in. And I want to let you comment on this. But the idea of covering and moving is that they were successful in clearing the building, but then they had another task. They had to assess, do we need to leave now while it's still dark? Keep in mind that if they waited during the day, for sure they were going to be fired upon. If they didn't act, though, then there's a chance they could be stuck where they were. Ultimately, the worst happened. Gunfire opened, and as soon as they fired back at the enemy, keep in mind the enemy knew where they were. They could see, and so that's what made them have to change this plan. And the cover and move strategy is basically what they did on their way back. They decided to go ahead and leave. They took the best option available to them, but cover and move is essentially some guys were having to continue to look back and make sure they're covering as the rest of the team moved forward. So this is a strategy to make sure that all potential aspects, and apply this to business, apply this to life, apply this to family, to make sure that you're going to inquire the least amount of damage. Wow, isn't that interesting? It's
Very
crazy. If you read this stuff, it's super intense.
Yeah, very interesting. And like you said, that's a gunfighting tactic. But if you think about it, cover and move means that each member works together for the mission
100%.
to accomplish the mission, so that you're supporting one another, whether that's a small group, a large group, what have you. And I think it's interesting that you said like there were some that were covering the others you're trying to advance your situation. You're trying to advance your location.
Absolutely, that's right.
So in your business or organization, you're trying to accomplish a goal. So if you're all working towards that, there's one group that's supporting while the other is moving and doing, and then you flip roles, vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's all supporting each other and working together. And so important to remember that there's no competing against each other.
Yes.
In the team.
That's right.
Like each group prioritizes the success over each part of the team. There's no competition there. So I think that's vital.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to read directly from the book, but cover and move, it is the most fundamental tactic, perhaps the only tactic. Put simply, cover and move means teamwork. And keep in mind that the way this book is formed is that each chapter begins with a story of the actual mission that they were on. And then it tells us a story because Leif and Jocko are called into companies. They do year-long leadership with company, big companies dealing with highly influential CEOs, CFOs. And keep in mind, they always recount that story too. And he goes in chapter 5, and he basically tells the story of they were called in to this company. And in terms of, you know how some corporations are, they can actually own small subsidiary companies. And without going into the corporate lingo, basically this particular CEO or manager that he was working with said, look, our times of what we want to do to push out production, they're always held back by this other company because they can't get us the stuff we need on time. Now, keep in mind, this other company is also owned by the parent company. And so what they go on to break down is this idea, just like you said, is teamwork. He told them, gave them some suggestions that, hey, you need to reach out to this other company. You guys need to begin working as a team. Now, keep in mind, the overall mission was the same because both companies were owned by the same big parent company. And so I know that's a business as it relates to business, but just think about that. What is an area in your life that could potentially be made better by simply communicating what you need from that company or from that person? Maybe you could even apply this to marriage. Come on, think about that. By opening up the lines of communication and saying, hey, listen, this is how I've been feeling. This is what's been happening. What we really need to do to be successful is for you to do this for us. And then it opens that line of communication. It goes on to say, long story short, they got together, each team or each company rather, even though they're owned by one, which means the mission at the end of the day is the exact same. They're on the exact same mission. And they came together and were able to work it out and happily ever after, their numbers increased and yada, yada. But Heather, isn't that interesting? I can see that applied in multiple facets of life.
Yeah, definitely. That's very interesting. Despite, we often think that the person giving the orders or the person at the top is really what's driving the whole thing.
Yeah.
As far, you could, like you said, relate that to marriage. If one spouse is a little bit more, not domineering, but more take charge.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is what I want to do. And that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that's just sometimes naturally, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But that is not the key driver for this is relationship. And I think we talked about that last time too.
That's good.
That relationships are by far the most critical component that enables effective, like we're talking about right now, cover and move.
Yeah, absolutely.
So building that trust between family members, between team members, between coworkers. If you're in a situation where you don't trust the other one's motives, you're not going to get anywhere. Nothing
absolutely.
is going to be successful. Like you're not
Right.
working together. If the team fails, everyone fails, right? The team
100%.
wins, everyone wins. And it was important, something that they pointed out here is, and relating it to, the battlefield, remembering that the enemy is outside the wire,
Wow.
meaning the external defensive perimeter around, our operating base.
Yeah.
Like, okay, outside of our family,
Wow.
outside of, and it's not just enemy as in person, but what are the enemies that come in and try to mess up your marriage? Mistrust, not trusting your partner, financial issues, those things that creep in and cause stuff to mess up.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And cause you not to trust. So then you're not working together. You're butting heads, and there's constant turmoil and chaos. And so I think it's important to remember that the enemy is not the other members of your team, family.
That's huge.
Coworkers, whatever. When chaos ensues on the job, it's not because someone is your enemy. Your coworker's not your enemy. It's just, okay, we got to get on the same team. We got to have a common goal. We got to fix this. We got to do something here.
Well, and I think that is the accountability aspect of this chapter. That's exactly right. Taking accountability and ownership of a problem can be very difficult. And I think where the maximum part comes in, or the extreme ownership part comes in, is that you take those steps. If restoration needs to be made, if forgiveness needs to be asked for or even extended to someone, because it's easy for us to get in a mindset that the enemy is within the walls. And it's
Right.
true. I mean, think about your household. Sometimes even in families, man, sometimes you feel like your own spouse ain't even on your team.
Right.
Think about that. Think about that.
Yeah.
Because we're all individuals. Our spouses are dealing with unique things in their own life, maybe as it pertains to jobs, maybe just in humanity itself, right?
And let's be honest, we can't always trust our own hearts,
Right? Absolutely.
Our
Rarely
own feelings
can we trust.
and emotions, we have them.
And they are deceiving, as
They
the Bible
are.
says.
Our hearts are deceiving. Yes, our hearts will deceive us, right?
And so, I think that's the accountability aspect of this whole thing. Cover and move is essentially a remembering the team. And
Right.
if you want to put this in spiritual terms, remembering the covenant, right? We said that we are, everything we do always comes back to a perspective of faith. Number one, the covenant that we have with Christ, and then in God's people. We always say, we always think the upward portion of the cross represents our relationship with us and God. And that's the easy part sometimes, right?
Right.
It's this horizontal bar that we get. That's the relationship we have between God's covenant people. And that's where it can get extremely messy. And so,
Because we don't always like each other.
no.
Just as people.
Yes.
As people. I may like my spouse, but I may not like, my neighbors, which I love my neighbors.
We
have
love our
amazing
neighbors. We got good neighbors.
But
yeah.
I may not like my
Right.
coworkers. But if we're called to be on team with whomever it is, we have to take responsibility for the success of that team. If we're just sitting around moping like, oh, I can't stand this person, I'm just like, I don't even care.
Yeah. Wow.
That's not being on team. That's not being, in the mix of making things happen.
Well, that's it. And what I really like about using this type of scenario as a teaching tool is that if you do not have accountability, or if you do not apply these principles in this type of situation, people die and you could die.
Yeah.
And so I think utilizing this wartime aspect, first of all, it's brilliant, but it also puts the importance into mind of how crucial this stuff is. Man, if you're not taking maximum accountability of your relationships, think about your heart. Man, our heart can get so bitter. And if we stay in a place that we're not, let's say there's something we don't want to forgive. So we feel wronged and we just ain't going to budge. We're not moving because we're the victim and we just ain't going to do it. And guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to be the one that suffers. And when you do that, you put yourself in a vulnerable situation where the enemy can easily come in and attack and kill. And so this whole concept of accountability and ownership, man, it's an acknowledgement. Maybe you weren't the one that messed up, but guess what? You still are responsible for your soul, for your heart. You're still responsible for your healing, whether you were the one that did it or not. If you allow yourself to stay in a place, you put yourself in a very, very vulnerable position.
That's right. Exactly. Good stuff. Let's move on to the next
Let's do it.
topic, which is called simple. And I'm just going to read this first paragraph
that.
because the
Yep.
way that it puts it is just, it lays it out there and it's simple, which I love.
I like
So it
simple.
says, combat, like anything in life, has inherent layers of complexity. Simplifying as much as possible
Wow.
is crucial to success. When plans and orders get too complex, people will not understand them.
Wow.
And when things go wrong, which they inevitably
Blah, 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 do.
inevitably
Blah, blah, blah,
will.
blah, do.
This lack of understanding can lead to a disastrous outcome. Plans and orders must be simple, clear, and concise.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
So this isn't limited to the battlefield. Business, whatever. Keeping plans, communication simple is key to success. There have been times, and I'm gonna go back to like teacher
Do it,
in the
girl.
classroom.
Do it.
And I'm talking to these second graders, and I'm like, okay, I've got this lesson, and like they're gonna like just love it
Oh,
and
man, they're
really
gonna eat it up.
understand. Like, say it's a science lesson, like they're gonna just love this. And if it's too complex and I give them all these different things all at once, they're just going to look at me like
Miss Soto, what is this?
like you had all those plans, you did all that, but it wasn't simple, it wasn't clear, concise, went way over their heads, like didn't work out, like wasted.
Yeah,
just wasted. Terrible.
Well, let's break this down. Why do you think they reacted that way, and what could you have done to take ownership of that scenario?
Well, I think that first of all, the planning prep, I should have known better. Because even myself, when someone comes at me with all sorts of instructions and like, okay, I need this by this time, I need you to do this by this time, we're going to do this like this, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, wow, that was a lot. Like you lost me like at step one. So I think as human beings, as people, whether little or, our age, older, whatever, I think that our brains, we can handle complex things. But I think that just like how we teach children in school, where you have scope and sequence, which is, okay, so in kindergarten, they're going to learn the alphabet and they're going to learn the sounds of the letters, right? You don't start out, you don't give a kindergarten a book and say, okay, let's read this book. Like I'm going to show you how to sound out all of these words or all of these letters in each of the words. Like this kid is going to pull his hair out. He's going to want to pull your hair out. You're going to pull his hair out. Like it doesn't make sense. There's an order to things. And I think as our human nature, the way God made us in his image, he is a God of order and not chaos and confusion. And so I think we thrive much better when things are organized, when it's simple to understand, because things are complex already.
That's it.
So don't make it worse with, I don't know.
Yeah, with trying to,
skipping steps and trying to make things fit where they don't fit. Doesn't make sense.
I like that. You said you don't give a second grader learning to read a book and say, read it. In this chapter on simple, another example from the book, he goes on and Leif is talking about, keep in mind they've been in Ramadi, the most dangerous part of Iraq for some time now. Long story short, a new army officer comes in. Now, keep in mind, SEALs and other branches of the military, in situations like this, they're asked to work with each other. This army officer comes in and he's leading a unit, and they're going to do some patrolling. Never been in Ramadi, by the way, never probably been in a firefight. In fact, he had a group of Iraqi soldiers, and they had never seen battle. Wow. And so he comes in with these big plans, kind of like you would do, like your analogy, giving a book to a second grader. He comes in with these big plans. He said, we want to do this patrol, and we want to do it in 3 separate places. And he said, whoa, in order to do that, you would have to coordinate with the Marines, the Army, and the SEALs. It was like really, really complex. For someone who, doesn't know the region, who has soldiers who had never even been in battle together, who don't know each other, they weren't tested. And it just reminded me, so he comes back and he presents that plan and he's shot down. And, he thought he did this amazing strategy, like he spent all this time. Right. And then he ends up accepting the advice. They end up doing just a simplified patrol, and even that was too much to handle. Wow. And so had they done what his original plan was. And so I think from a leadership perspective, and the accountability or ownership portion of this is, you have to know your audience. You have to know whom you're speaking to.
It goes back to that relationship.
Yeah, that relationship, absolutely. I think sometimes we can get caught up and we can lead from a place of the knowledge that we have. Because we feel like we know this stuff, maybe everybody else knows it, or if they don't, they should.
Yeah, surely they do.
And I think, I'm thinking about we've been listening to a lot of marriage stuff. We were at a seminar or not a seminar, but a little retreat.
Weekend retreat.
And then I did this awesome cultural index thing with the leadership cohort I'm a part of. And so I've got all these ideas running through my mind. But essentially, one of the things I learned last week as a leader is that a lot of times when we're leading, and that you can apply this to family, we want to have people come to us the way we are. Maybe we're extreme, maybe we're really fast paced, maybe we're, all intense. But the best way to actually lead them, is to explain how we lead, ask how they process information, and then actually meet them where they are. And as leaders, I think that's hard to do sometimes. And so I think it's just a good example of how we don't want to give a second grader a whole book to read when they barely know how to read a sentence.
Still learning how to read.
Yeah, they're still learning how to read.
My second graders are reading right now.
Well, I believe
good.
because that's VCS.
But yeah, it's true. So if everyone on the team, whatever team, you put that in your head, they have to understand their role in the mission. And I think it's interesting that you brought up the index?
Cultural index.
Index. So is everybody in the right seat on the bus? Is everybody operating in their particular skill set or where they thrive? Because that's what we want, right? We want to thrive. Everybody wants to thrive. You don't want to be in this intense situation where it's completely out of your element. I'm not saying not to be in uncomfortable situations and stretch and challenge yourself. Yes. But if as far as your career or in your home life, if you're in a situation where this isn't my thriving, this isn't my natural gifting.
Yes.
Right. Because God gives each of us individual gifts, different gifts. Thank goodness we're different and we have different strengths.
That's right.
And if we're in the wrong position or role, we're constantly going to feel overwhelmed and less than because we're not reaching those goals. What's wrong here? So I think it's important that each person understands their role.
Yeah.
Or they can't execute. If they don't understand the mission, they can't execute. So it even goes on to talk about, so there's this thing in the military called a read back. And this is, if you just simply ask someone, did you understand what I just explained? Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Got it.
And they're going to go away. I have no idea.
What they just say?
Right. But if you ask that person to replay back or like in the military, read back, have them explain their piece of the mission to you, that lets you know that they do understand. And we do this in school too. Teachers use narration. We just read a book. We just read a sentence. Okay, can you narrate that back to me? Put that in your own words.
Wow.
And if someone can explain it back to you, they got it. That's your confirmation without just simply asking them, do you understand?
Right.
Yeah. And then they go back and they have no clue. Right.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
100%. Those readbacks, man, that's essential. And I think we can apply that to a lot of relationships without it sounding like a readback or without.
Right.
I just know that, I'm thinking even in marriage and relationships, how many times do we get crossed because we're thinking the other person said something that they really didn't say, or that they are misinterpreting or hearing what they want to hear out of the sentence, or trying to mind control. And you're telling me what I'm saying when I'm actually telling you what I'm saying. You're just not listening and you're making up what I'm saying. So it happens. So I think that's an effective tool that you could even use in relationship, just to say, hey, did you kind of understand what I was saying? Do you want to verbally tell me what I just said so I know you understand?
That's what I want to say. You was listening. We kind of did that exercise with the marriage retreat weekend where we had to basically say, when this happens, this is why I'm feeling like this, and this is what I want from you, something like that. And then the other person had to replay that back and say, so what I'm hearing that you said, and this is how you feel when this happens, and this is what you need from me, or something like that.
It's effective, dude. It is effective.
It is effective.
And I learned, man, I think we're going to, we're definitely going to do an episode on some of that stuff we learned. I
For
think it's
sure.
maybe next episode because we're concluding this today. But I just the importance of good and clear communication, and I think that could really just keep things from happening or misunderstandings from happening.
Yeah.
And so we understand that how crucial this can be in this military type setting, but how crucial is it even in our own homes?
Right.
Because honestly, we're with the people, we're with our families more than we're with anybody. Our children, we want them to understand us and not misinterpret something we say. Our spouses, those that we're leading, people in the church, ministry, if you're in ministry, whatever it is, I think that learning how to communicate and ask for feedback can go a long way and prevent a lot of errors and efficiency, man. I want to be efficient in all that I do. Amen.
Exactly. What's the myth of communication that it actually happened?
Right. Exactly.
So we may be talking, but that don't mean we're
There
communicating.
ain't nobody listening. Nobody's home.
So, all right, the next one, prioritize and execute.
Come on.
So this is determining the highest priority and then executing on that
I
priority.
like that.
We all get stuck in that paralyzed mode, like I'm overwhelmed. There's a lot of important things right now.
Wow.
Or
how do I? Yeah.
which
pick what is most
how do I
important?
order them? What is highest priority? How do I know which one to actually be working on and doing right now, right? So decide which problem is the biggest priority and respond.
Wow.
Once you know, you got to actually act, right? And there's also this thing that if you don't know what to do, you must detach.
Wow.
Do you remember reading about that in there?
I like that. You must detach. Yeah.
Detaching, that is pulling yourself back from the chaos and the
I love
mayhem
it.
of the immediate situation and give yourself, this says, as much altitude, literal or figurative,
Right,
to
exactly.
examine the problems. You must detach from and be in control of your emotions to determine what is best for the greater team and the mission. Doing so will also result in a calming effect on those you are leading
Come
through this
on.
dynamic situation.
Man, such good
Feeling
stuff
overwhelmed, says relax, look around, make a call.
there. It's funny you say that. Just in today's sermon, because we record on Sundays most of the time. Jesus himself had to detach
Right.
from the crowds and
Yeah.
from the need and the constant pulling on. And so I can see the importance of detaching just to seek that solitude to get that clarity. And certainly in leadership, in marriage, in all of those things, we want to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And so sometimes detaching is a way for us to recollect our thoughts,
Yeah.
to sit back and reassess the situation. I think the point and the premise of this is that we don't want to be hyper reactive in terms of emotions only.
Right.
Emotions
Right.
matter and they are important, but this idea of extreme ownership and maximum accountability, it's learning to assess and even looking at the situation and taking accountability for it and say, you know what, I was the point man on that.
Yep.
Yeah, the people under me may have in fact messed up, but at the end of the day, it falls on me. And so how can we better communicate? And I think the premise of detaching is very good so that we can assess. And like I said, we know that Jesus, come on, if Jesus could detach, we sure can. Amen.
He did. He showed, I think that was he was showing us the way, like the example of like,
100%.
yes, this is what you do, right? So relax, look around, make a call. So sometimes, you start with a mission, you start with a goal. Sometimes things happen. Always things happen.
Yeah, not sometimes.
And you need to change. You need to pivot.
Yeah.
Right? So the importance of communicating, first of all, that change to those under you, the rest of the team,
Oh, I love
whoever
that.
you need to communicate to. But the art, or maybe not the art, but the skill of being flexible, being able to pivot, being able to adapt,
Ooh.
right?
Yes.
Because is that not life? Like things are never going to always go the way that we plan and want them to.
You can plan
Right.
and you can plan effectively. And listen, even if things go wrong, that doesn't mean the plan wasn't good.
Right.
It just means
Right.
that life be lifing.
That's
You
it.
know what I'm saying? And
That's
that
it.
things there is always going to be that variable that we just simply can't account for. Maybe
Right.
I remember one time we were all loaded up, packed up, man. We were headed to the beach. We were ready to go. I mean, we were packed up to the brim.
Full.
And guess what? We driving down and I start feeling and the tire is flat. We weren't even out of town yet, y'all.
I don't even think we were out of the
We weren't even
subdivision.
out of the subdivision, probably. Long story short, we had to go to a little tire place. Thank God for it, man. Thank God for Hart Tire. They hooked us up, and he knew we were going on vacation. He said, "Don't even worry about it." I said, "What? Did he patch it, or what? Did he give us a new? What did we
It was
do?"
a whole different tire.
Golly.
Gave us a tire and
So he hooked us up. So I
Sent us
say
on
that
our
to
way.
say, listen, we were effective. We planned, we packed everything, we were efficient,
We was
we were
ready to
leaving
go,
on time.
ready to go.
I mean, all of the things that we were in control of, we did. But guess what?
did it.
There's that one little thing, and we didn't control it.
like, you didn't plan for this. But in those moments,
In
being able
those
to
moments.
hold your composure, we could have said, forget it. We're staying home.
Yeah,
It's too much.
I'm going to the beach.
Can't do it. Jeremy's like, yeah, I'm going to the beach.
Yeah, I'll leave
stay
y'all,
home.
but I'm going. No,
Y'all
just
stay
kidding.
home. Yeah, but we have to learn to be flexible in life and understand that things are not always going to go our way, and we got to pivot. We gotta monitor and adjust. as we
Monitor and
always say.
adjust. We always come back to that one. That was in a
Always.
old podcast episode.
Yeah, it was.
Well, lots of great content in this. We're talking about maximum accountability, and the title of this book is Extreme Ownership, just using that as a resource. Hope you guys were encouraged by that. Remember, this idea of extreme ownership can be applied in every facet of your
Every
life.
facet.
So think about the things that you're in control of. How can you
Yep.
own them? How can you elevate them? And again, we hope you guys were encouraged by this. Tune in. By the way, we haven't been posting weekly just because we've started
We've been going
streaming live on Tuesdays, and that's been going
about
well too.
scary.
So we're still working out all of the scheduling
kinks,
things,
kinks
all the
and
kinks.
quirks.
Oh, man, this is so. Gosh, at least when we have tech problems here, nobody knows it. But
Right,
live,
just
oh,
us.
bro,
Just
Lord,
us. We're the
help
only
us.
ones.
Hallelujah.
Now everybody sees them happening.
Yes, live
as they happen.
As they happen.
So,
I'm live, man. It is what it is. But
so we have to remember to, what is it? Stop
drop and roll
or
No, I'm kidding.
relax, look around, and make a call.
There you go. That's it. Hey, hope you guys were blessed by this conversation. Comment, like, subscribe, do all of the things. And we'll see you next time on the Junto Podcast. That's right, the Together
Together
Podcast. Be blessed. Thank you for listening to the Junto Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find our link to YouTube and social media at juntopodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, like, and follow. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.